You're just jealous because she's going places, Mum hissed. That's when I decided they'd regret every last word. I'm Olivia, the responsible one, the reliable one, the boring one. At least that's what my family has branded me since I was old enough to balance a checkbook, which, by the way, was age 12. While other kids were having sleepovers, I was learning to manage our household budget because Mom was too busy managing my sister Tessa's modelling portfolio. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, Tessa announced at our weekly family dinner, her perfectly manicured hands clutching her rose gold iPhone 14 Pro. I already have 3,000 followers. Mallory says with the right equipment and strategy, I could hit 1 million by next year. I stabbed at my salmon, already knowing where this was heading. Mallory was Tessa's latest mentor, a mid-tier influencer who charged astronomical fees for her exclusive coaching program. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Mom beamed, reaching across the table to squeeze Tessa's hand. Tell us more about the plan. Well, Tessa's eyes sparkled with that familiar look, the one that always preceded someone else opening their wallet. I need to invest in myself. Professional camera equipment, lighting, a small studio space. Plus, travel content is huge right now. Mallory says... How much? I interrupted, earning a sharp look from Dad. Tessa bit her lip, playing innocent. Around 60,000. I choked on my wine. $60,000? Are you insane? Olivia! Mom's voice could cut glass. Your sister is trying to build something here. This is an investment in her future. Her future as what? Another wannabe influencer drowning in debt? I've done the math, Tessa pouted, pulling up a spreadsheet on her phone. Once I hit 50,000 followers, the brand deals start rolling in. Mallory makes 6 figures from her partnerships. Dad cleared his throat. We've discussed this with Tessa, and we think it's a solid plan. The only issue is... He glanced at Mom. The banks won't approve such a large personal loan for someone her age. But if you co-sign... Absolutely not. I pushed my plate away. I've spent years building my credit score. I'm not risking it on this scheme. Scheme? Tessa's eyes welled up right on cue. This is my dream, Olivia. Why do you always have to rain on everything? Because someone has to be realistic. You've never held a real job. You dropped out of community college. And now you want to gamble 60 grand on becoming Instagram famous. You work at a bank, Mum interjected. You understand finance. That's why you're perfect for this. Your sister needs you. I laughed bitterly. Funny how I'm suddenly perfect when you need my signature. I knew she'd be like this, Tessa sniffled. She's always been jealous of me, ever since we were kids. That's not fair, Tessa, Dad said weakly, but his eyes pleaded with me to give in. Always the peacekeeper, never the parent. Jealous? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood. I've worked my ass off for everything I have. I paid my own way through college. I saved for my own apartment. Meanwhile, you've handed her everything on a silver platter, and she still wants more. We support our children's dreams in this family, Mum declared, her voice ice cold. But I suppose you wouldn't understand that, since you never dreamed bigger than pushing papers at a desk. The room went silent. Even Tessa looked uncomfortable. I'll think about it, I said quietly, grabbing my purse. But don't hold your breath. Olivia, wait, Dad called after me, but I was already heading for the door. Later that night, the texts started rolling in. Tessa, I can't believe you're being so selfish. This could change my life. Mum, your father and I are very disappointed in your attitude. Dad, please, call us. We can work something out. I turned off my phone and poured myself another glass of wine. As I stood at my apartment window, watching the city lights flicker, something shifted inside me. Years of being the family ATM, the responsible one, the boring one, it all crystallized into a single clear thought. They wanted my signature? Fine. But this time I'd make sure the fine print worked in my favor. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. Uriel Steele, attorney at law. We'd gone to college together, and he owed me a favor. Hey, Yuri, it's Olivia. Remember that time I helped you ace financial law? I need some advice about loan agreements and collateral clauses. Sometimes the best revenge isn't saying no, it's saying yes, and waiting for them to realize what they've actually signed up for. I signed the papers under their watchful eyes, but only one of us knew the truth hidden on page 7. 2 days earlier, I'd met Uriel at a quiet coffee shop downtown, far from my family's usual haunts. He raised an eyebrow as I slid the draft loan agreement across the table. Hypothetically speaking, I began, if someone was forced to co-sign a loan they knew would default. Hypothetically, Uriel smirked, scanning the document. This is oddly specific for a hypothetical situation, Liv. Just help me understand my options. He leaned back, coffee forgotten. Well, your hypothetical person could refuse to sign, or they could add conditions, like requiring collateral against their portion of the liability. Collateral? I sat up straighter. What kind of collateral? Property, usually. Something of equal value to secure the debt. He studied my face. Your family still owns that rental property on Oak Street, right? My heart raced. How would someone hypothetically add that kind of clause? Carefully, he warned, and with proper legal language. Here. He pulled out a pen and started drafting on a napkin. My phone buzzed. Another text from Tessa. Just ordered my first ring light. Can't wait to start creating content. Paska blessed. I turned the phone face down. Show me exactly what to write. Back in the present, I watched Mum's perfectly manicured finger trace down each page of the contract. Everything looks in order, she announced, passing it to Dad. Are you sure you don't want to read it more carefully? I asked innocently. There's a lot of legal terminology. Oh, please. Tessa rolled her eyes from her perch on the couch. We trust you, Miss Bank Executive. Stop being so dramatic. I caught my reflection in the window. Calm, collected, almost serene. Inside, my heart was pounding. I just want to make sure everyone understands their obligations, I said, voice steady. Especially regarding default scenarios and collateral requirements. Yes, Mum waved dismissively. We've been over this. Now, Tessa needs the funds transferred by Monday to secure her studio space. Dad signed without reading, as I knew he would. His fountain pen scratched across the signature line. The same pen he'd used to sign all of Tessa's modelling contracts, her private school tuition, her failed business ventures. There, he smiled, sliding the contract back to me. All done. Family supporting family, just as it should be. I carefully tucked the papers into my briefcase. I'll file these tomorrow. The bank should process everything within 48 hours. Perfect! Tessa squealed, already typing on her phone. Mallory says we can start the branding workshop next week. Later that night, my phone lit up with Instagram notifications. Tessa had posted a tearful thank you video. So blessed to have a family that believes in me. Big things coming. Shabayiju influencer life. So blessed ju dreams come true. The comments rolled in. Can't wait to see your journey. You deserve this queen. Following for the content. My friend Evelyn from work texted, She's really milking this, huh? I replied, Just wait. The next morning, I walked into the bank early before my regular shift. Sandra in loans knew me well enough not to ask questions when I handed her the notarized agreement. Everything's in order, I said. Please make sure all the clauses are entered exactly as written. She nodded, already typing. The funds should be available by tomorrow. Perfect. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Sandra, flag page 7 for special attention during processing. It's important that section is properly recorded. Of course, honey. I'll handle it personally. Walking to my desk, I passed the bank's wall of motivational quotes. One caught my eye. Patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. I smiled. I'd been patient for 28 years. I could be patient a little longer. My phone buzzed. Tessa had tagged me in another post. Shopping for camera equipment with my amazing big sis. She believes in me so much, she helped make my dreams come true. You blessed shaman sister love. I clicked like and added a heart emoji comment. Let her enjoy her moment. Let them all bask in their certainty that they'd won again, that reliable Olivia had fallen in line like always. The modified clause on page 7 was my own little time bomb, ticking away silently. 3 months, maybe 4, before Tessa's investment imploded, before the payment notices started, before they discovered exactly what they'd signed. I opened my email to find a message from Uriel. Documents filed. You sure about this? Absolutely, I typed back. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. Then I turned to my actual work, humming quietly. After all, I had a reputation for being the responsible one to maintain. One night, Mum called me. No pleasantries, just, you need to fix this. I nearly laughed. 3 months had passed in a blur of Instagram stories and TikTok dances. I'd watched it all unfold from a safe distance, counting down the days. First came the shopping sprees. Designer outfits for content creation, top-of-the-line camera equipment, ring lights that cost more than my first car, then the rented spaces. Tessa's studio turned out to be a luxury apartment she'd leased for shooting lifestyle content. It's all about aesthetic, she'd explained during one of our mandatory family dinners. Nobody wants to see regular apartment content. Mallory, her influencer mentor, encouraged every expense. Invest in yourself, she preached during their weekly coaching calls. You can't attract abundance with a poverty mindset. The first warning sign came when Tessa's engagement numbers plateaued. Their algorithm hates me, she whined during a family brunch. Mallory says I need to pivot to luxury travel content. Of course, sweetheart, Mum cooed. Where are you thinking? Dubai first, then maybe the Maldives. Mallory says, How much is left in the account? I interrupted, stirring my coffee. Tessa's face clouded. That's not your business. Actually, as co-signer, it is. Mom shot me a warning look. Tessa knows what she's doing. Don't you trust your sister? I smiled thinly. Trust has nothing to do with basic math. 2 weeks later, Mallory ghosted. Her coaching program disappeared, along with her Instagram account. Tessa was devastated. She was my mentor, she sobbed during an emergency family meeting. Now, I have to rebuild my whole strategy. What about the brand deal she promised? Dad asked quietly. I noticed new worry lines around his eyes. They fell through, but I just need to pivot. Maybe luxury real estate tours I could... When's the last time you made a loan payment? I asked. Silence fell over the room. Tessa suddenly became very interested in her phone. Tessa? Dad's voice sharpened. The payments? I was investing in growth, she protested. Mallory said content creators have to spend money to make money. How many payments have you missed? Mom demanded. Just 3, maybe 4. But once I hit my stride, my phone buzzed. A notification from the bank's loan department. I opened it, already knowing what I'd find. Default notice, I announced. Looks like they're moving to collect. Well, you'll have to help her, Mum snapped. You're the co-signer. This affects your credit too. I took a slow sip of water. Actually, you might want to check page 7 of the agreement. What's on page 7? Dad asked. Oh, just a clause about collateral requirements in case of default. Nothing major. I stood up, gathering my purse. You should probably dig out your copy and review it. Olivia? Mum's voice held a note of panic I'd never heard before. What did you do? Me, I just protected my interests, like any good financial professional would. I headed for the door. Better find those papers quick. Bank moves fast on defaults. Wait! Tessa called after me. You can't just leave. We need to figure this out. I turned back. You know what's funny? Your latest Instagram post about manifesting abundance has more engagement than any of your sponsored content ever did. Maybe that's the universe trying to tell you something. My phone kept buzzing as I drove home. Texts poured in. Tessa, this isn't fair. You have to help me. Mum, call us immediately. This is unacceptable. Dad, please, let's discuss this as a family. I ignored them all and called Evelyn instead. How'd it go? She asked. About how you'd expect. They're just realizing actions have consequences. And the property clause? They haven't found it yet, but they will. I smiled into the darkness. Want to grab a drink? I have a feeling my phone's going to be very busy tonight. At the bar, Evelyn raised her glass. To Karma. To page 7, I countered. My phone lit up again. Tessa had gone live on Instagram, mascara running down her face. Sometimes the people closest to you can be the most toxic, she sobbed to her dwindling followers. I turned the phone face down and ordered another round. The real show hadn't even started yet. Soon they'd find the clause, realise what it meant, understand exactly what they'd signed away with their careless signatures. You know they'll never forgive you, Evelyn said softly. I thought about years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the boring one, about watching them throw money at Tessa's dreams while I worked overtime to pay my student loans. Good, I replied, because I'm done forgiving them. I said, so glad you brought up paperwork. I went to my room and came back with the contract and a yellow highlighter. The pounding on my apartment door started at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. I'd been expecting them. The bank's final notice had arrived yesterday. Olivia, open this door right now. Mum's voice carried through the hallway like a fire alarm. I took my time, sipping my coffee, checking my hair in the mirror. When I finally opened the door, they burst in like a storm front. Mum in her designer suit, Dad looking haggard, Tessa with puffy eyes and yesterday's makeup. The bank is threatening to take action, Dad said, pacing my living room. We need to figure this out. Figure what out? I settled into my favourite armchair. The terms were quite clear. Clear? Tessa shrieked. They're saying something about property liens. They can't do that. Actually, they can, and they will. I set my coffee down. Would you like to see the exact clause? Don't you dare act smug, Mum hissed. This is your fault. If you had just helped your sister properly, I laughed, like co-signing a blank cheque for her influencer fantasy. Speaking of which, how many followers did you end up with, Tessa? That's not fair. The algorithm. Still blaming the algorithm? Not the $12,000 you spent on that Dubai trip? Or the $5,000 coaching fee Mallory charged before disappearing? You've always been jealous, Tessa sniffled. You couldn't stand seeing me succeed. Succeed? I stood up, walking to my home office. Let's talk about success. I returned with a folder, spreading documents across my coffee table. Bank statements, loan agreements, default notices. Here's your success by the numbers. $60,000 gone in 3 months, $0 in brand deals, 4 missed payments. I tapped each paper for emphasis. And one very important clause about collateral. Dad grabbed the loan agreement, flipping pages frantically. Where is it? What clause? Page 7, I said sweetly. The one you all signed without reading. Mum snatched the contract, her face going pale as she found the highlighted section. In the event of default, the co-signer's liability shall be secured against property at 742 Oak Street. Her voice trailed off. Our rental property? Dad whispered. You put a lien against our rental property. No, I corrected, you did. When you signed without reading, just like you always sign whatever Tessa puts in front of you. You tricked us! Tessa jumped up, mascara running again. This is fraud. Actually, I pulled out one final document, Uriel's notarized statement. Everything was completely legal. You all signed willingly. I even suggested you read it carefully, remember? We're your family, Mum's voice cracked. How could you do this to us? Family? I felt something snap inside. Was it family when you made me work through high school to pay for Tessa's modelling classes? When you refinanced your house to fund her fashion line but couldn't help with my college tuition? That was different, Dad started. Different how? Because Tessa was the golden child? Because her dreams mattered more than my reality? I stood up, suddenly tired of all of it. Well, now reality is calling. The bank wants its money. We'll fight this, Mum declared. We'll get lawyers. With what money? I gestured to the statements. Tessa's broke, the loan's in default, and your precious rental property is about to become bank property. I'll never forgive you for this, Tessa sobbed. Funny, I smiled as that's exactly how I felt every time you took and took and took, knowing I'd be forced to give. What do you want? Dad asked quietly. There must be something. I want you to leave. I want you to deal with this mess yourselves. And I want you to finally understand that actions have consequences. You've ruined us, Mum whispered. No, I opened my apartment door. You did that yourselves. I just stopped preventing it. They filed out slowly, defeated. Tessa paused in the doorway. I really thought I could make it work. I know, I said softly, that's the problem. You always think things will work out because someone else always pays the price. After they left, I poured another coffee and checked my phone. Tessa had already posted a new video. Sometimes toxic family members show their true colours. Shock family trauma, shock betrayal. The comments were not what she expected. Girl, you blew 60K on Instagram photos. Maybe get a real job? This is why you read contracts. I closed the app and called Evelyn. They found out about page 7, I said. How'd they take it? I looked around my quiet apartment, thinking about the years of peace ahead. No more family emergencies, no more financial rescues, no more being the responsible one. They took it exactly how you'd expect, I replied. Like people who never learned that no means no. Until now, Evelyn said. Until now, I agreed. Tessa said, You loopholed us? I looked her dead in the eye. No, I protected myself. You loopholed yourself. The bank's conference room felt too small for the amount of tension it contained. Their lawyer, Mr. Patterson, sat at one end of the table, methodically arranging documents. My family huddled at the other end, with Uriel and me in the middle. Neutral territory, though nothing about this was neutral anymore. Let's review the situation, Patterson began, adjusting his glasses. The loan has defaulted. Standard procedure requires us to pursue collection through the designated collateral channels. This is ridiculous, Mom interrupted. There must be some mistake. That property has been in our family for 20 years. The documentation is quite clear. Patterson slid a paper across the table. The property was offered as collateral, with all parties' signatures properly notarized. We never agreed to that. Tessa's voice cracked. Actually, Uriel spoke up, pulling out his own copy. You did. right here in what we call the security clause. Would you like me to read it? This is your fault, Mum hissed at me. You knew exactly what you were doing. Yes, I met her gaze steadily. Just like you knew exactly what you were doing when you pressured me to co-sign. Ladies, Patterson cleared his throat, the bank's position is straightforward. Either the loan balance is paid in full within 30 days, or we begin proceedings to claim the collateral property. Dad slumped in his chair. How much? How much to clear it? Current balance with penalties and interest, $78,422. Tessa gasped, but the loan was only $60,000. Interest accrues daily, Patterson explained, plus the missed payment penalties. I can get the money, Tessa declared. I just need time to build my platform. Your platform? I couldn't help laughing. Your last post got 12 likes, Tessa. 12. And 3 were from Mum's bridge club. This isn't funny, she snapped. This is my life. No, I leaned forward. This is reality. Something you've been sheltered from your entire life. But guess what? Reality doesn't care about your dreams or your followers or your aesthetic. Ms. Ryan, Patterson interrupted, addressing Mum. The bank requires your decision today. Will you be paying the balance, or shall we proceed with the property claim? Mum's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she reached for her designer purse. We need to discuss this with our own lawyer. Of course. Patterson gathered his papers. You have 24 hours to notify us of your decision. After that, we move forward automatically. As everyone stood to leave, Tessa grabbed my arm. You have to help us. You're my sister. I gently removed her hand. I am your sister, but I'm not your safety net anymore. You loopholed us? Her voice was small, confused. All this time you knew this would happen? No, I protected myself. You loopholed yourself. There's a difference. In the parking lot, Dad tried one last time. Olivia, please. We can work something out. Family shouldn't do a lot of things, I cut him off. Family shouldn't play favourites. Family shouldn't exploit each other. Family shouldn't sign contracts without reading them. I'll never speak to you again, Mum declared, her voice ice cold. Mum, I smiled sadly. That might be the first gift you've ever given me. Later that night, my phone exploded with messages from extended family. Apparently, Mum had been busy. Aunt Sarah. How could you do this to your own parents? Uncle Bob. Your mother is heartbroken. Cousin Rachel. They gave you everything. I forwarded them all to a folder labelled Flying Monkeys and poured myself a glass of wine. On my laptop, I pulled up the property records for 742 Oak Street. The place where Dad had always said he'd retire. The investment he'd chosen over my college fund because Tessa needed the modelling money more. My phone buzzed. A text from Uriel. You okay? Better than okay, I replied. Just watching karma do its thing. Tessa went live on Instagram again that night. Sometimes the universe tests us, she sniffled to her dwindling audience. But I'm choosing to see this as an opportunity for growth. Blessed new beginnings. The comments were brutal. Girl, you lost your parents' property over Instagram. This is why you don't trust influencer coaches. Time to get a real job. I closed the app and walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my family was probably huddled around their dining table, desperately trying to find a way out of the trap they'd set for themselves. But for the first time in my life, their crisis wasn't my problem. Their poor planning wasn't my emergency. Their dreams weren't my responsibility. My phone buzzed one last time. A final text from Dad. I hope you're happy. I typed back, I am. And that's what really bothers you, isn't it? Then I turned off my phone and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in years. I stared at Mum, sobbing on the front porch. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing. The for sale sign went up on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, Mum had staged a one-woman protest on the front steps of the rental property, mascara-stained tissues littering the ground around her designer heels. "She's been there for 3 hours," my old neighbour Tommy texted, along with a photo. "Your dad keeps trying to get her to leave." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the messages to Evelyn, who called immediately. "Have you seen Tessa's latest video?" she asked without preamble. "No, but I'm sure it's riveting." "She started a GoFundMe. Save our family legacy, complete with crying emoji and everything." I pulled up the page. Tessa's tear-streaked face filled the screen as she told her version of events. How her jealous sister had tricked the family. How their precious property was being stolen. How she just needed a little help from her amazing followers. Current donations, $43. "At least she's finally learning about real income," I muttered. "Your mom's making the rounds too," Evelyn continued. "She called my mother yesterday, trying to get your work friends to pressure you into doing the right thing." "The right thing?" I laughed. "Like what they did when they—" My doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Dad, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I'll call you back," I told Evelyn. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. "Yes? Can we talk?" He held up a manila envelope. "I brought the original loan papers. Maybe if we go through them together?" "There's nothing to go through. The terms are clear." "Your mother's not well," he tried. "The stress is—" "The stress she caused herself?" I crossed my arms. "The stress of finally facing consequences. We're your parents." "Really?" "Because for the past 28 years, you've only been Tessa's parents. I was just the backup plan, the responsible one, the boring one. That's not fair." "Neither was making me work through a high school while Tessa got dance lessons. Neither was refinancing your house for her fashion line while I took out student loans. Neither was guilt-tripping me into co-signing a loan you knew would default." He slumped against the doorframe. "We never meant—" "You never meant for it to blow up in your faces," I finished. "You never meant for your actions to have consequences. You never meant for me to stop being your safety net. Please," he whispered, "we can't lose the property." "You already have." I closed the door on his protest and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Mum, 2 from Tessa, and a string of texts from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Then a new notification. Tessa had tagged me in her latest Instagram story. I clicked, despite my better judgment. "This is what toxic family looks like," she sobbed to the camera. "My own sister, who I trusted, who I loved, betrayed us all. But you know what? I'm choosing forgiveness. I'm choosing to rise above. And I'm asking my amazing followers to help save our family property." The comments were a battlefield. "Girl, you spent $60K on Instagram photos and lost your parents' property? This is the best karma story ever. Maybe try getting an actual job." My phone buzzed with a text from Uriel. "Bank's moving forward with the property claim. You sure you want to see this through?" "Absolutely," I replied. I walked to my kitchen window, which overlooked the city. Somewhere out there, Mum was probably still sitting on those front steps, playing the victim for anyone who would listen. Dad was probably making desperate calls to lawyers who would tell him exactly what he didn't want to hear. And Tessa was undoubtedly planning her next tearful video, trying to milk the last drops of sympathy from her dwindling audience. My phone lit up again, a message from an unknown number. "You heartless bitch. How could you do this to your own family? Aunt Linda." I added it to my blocked list and poured myself a coffee. The morning news played quietly in the background as I prepared for work, just another normal day at the office. Because that's the thing about revenge. It doesn't always come with dramatic confrontations or satisfying showdowns. Sometimes It's just watching quietly as people who never thought they'd face consequences finally run out of chances. I grabbed my keys and headed out, passing my building's bulletin board. Someone had posted a notice about a financial literacy workshop at the local community centre. I paused, took a photo of the contact information. Maybe, when this was all over, I'd volunteer there. Help other people learn to protect themselves from the Tessas of the world. After all, I was pretty good at reading the fine print. I didn't ruin them. They did this to themselves. I just stopped carrying their sins. The auction was held on a crisp autumn morning in the bank's main conference room. I sat in the back, wearing sunglasses and a blazer I'd never worn before. Nobody from my family noticed me. They were too busy huddled in the front row, Mum clutching Dad's arm, Tessa filming everything for her documentary about family betrayal. Lot 247, the auctioneer announced. Property at 742 Oak Street. Starting bid at $300,000. Mum's shoulders stiffened. This was the property she'd bragged about at every dinner party, the investment she'd chosen over my education, their retirement safety net. 320, called a voice from the middle row. 340, counted another. I watched my father's hand twitch, probably imagining the paddle in his grip, the bids he couldn't make. Their lawyer had already explained. They couldn't participate without proof of funds, which they didn't have. 360, called a familiar voice. I looked up. Mrs. Rodriguez, our old neighbour from when I was a kid, the one Mum always looked down on because she cleaned houses for a living, the one who'd secretly slipped me lunch money during high school when my parents were too busy funding Tessa's modelling portfolio to notice I was skipping meals. 365, someone else tried. 390, Mrs. Rodriguez counted firmly. Mum turned around, face paling as she recognised her former neighbour. The woman she'd once told, "Some people are just meant to be renters." Going once at 390. Tessa's phone kept recording, her mascara starting to run. Going twice. Dad stared straight ahead, shoulders slumped. Sold to bidder number 43. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled, her decades of hard work and careful saving finally paying off. She'd told me once while I was mowing her lawn for extra cash. Sometimes the best revenge is just succeeding. I slipped out before the paperwork started, but not before hearing Mum's shrill voice. "This is a mistake. That property has been in our family for—" "Mum," the auctioneer cut in, "the sale is final." Outside, the autumn air felt clean, new. My phone buzzed with a notification. Tessa had already posted. "The most heartbreaking day of my life. Watch my family legacy being stolen by the system. Link in bio for my full story and support fund." The comments rolled in immediately. "Girl, this is getting pathetic." "Maybe if you hadn't blown 60K on Instagram." "Time to get a real job." Then a text from Evelyn. "It's done?" "It's done," I replied. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. The property was gone. The family's safety net had vanished. Their carefully constructed image of success had crumbled. "I feel light," I typed back. Another notification popped up. A direct message from Mrs. Rodriguez. "Thank you for the tip about the auction. The tenants can stay as long as they want, same rent. Some people understand the value of stability." I smiled, remembering how she'd taught me to budget when I was 16, showing me her careful ledgers while Mum was driving Tessa to yet another modelling shoot. My phone rang. Dad's number. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message. "Olivia, we never meant... Your mother's devastated. Tessa's talking about moving back home. Everything's falling apart. I hope you're happy with what you've done." I saved the message, a reminder of why I'd done this. Not for revenge, not really, but for justice. For the teenage girl who'd worked overtime while her sister got everything. For the college student who'd eaten ramen while her parents refinanced their house for Tessa's dreams. Walking to my car, I passed a coffee shop window. Inside, a young barista was carefully counting her tips. Something clicked. I pulled out my phone and called the number from that financial literacy workshop flyer. "Hi," I said when someone answered. "I'm interested in volunteering. I have some experience with financial planning and, let's say, family dynamics." "Perfect," the coordinator replied. "We're actually starting a new program for young women next month, teaching them about budgeting, loans, protecting their assets." Sounds exactly like what I'm looking for. That evening, I drove past 742 Oak Street one last time. The for sale sign was gone, replaced by Mrs. Rodriguez's under new management notice. In the window, I could see one of the long-term tenants watering her plants, secure in the knowledge her rent wouldn't suddenly spike. My phone buzzed again. Mom's number this time. I declined the call and turned on my favourite playlist instead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about finally building your own, free from their chaos, their demands, their endless taking. I drove home to my quiet apartment, to my stable job, to my carefully built life. All the boring, responsible things they'd mocked. Turns out boring wasn't so bad after all. Sometimes you don't torch the bridge. You just stop patching the holes and let them fall through. And when they do, you realise the weight holding you down wasn't duty. It was them. Welcome to financial self-defence? I smiled at the dozen young women gathered in the community centre's meeting room. I'm Olivia, and I'm here to teach you what nobody taught me, how to protect yourself from financial abuse. A hand shot up immediately. Like, from scammers? Sometimes, I nodded. But often it's from people closer to home. Family, friends, partners who claim to love you. Another participant leaned forward. "Is this about that viral influencer story? The one where the sister lost her parents' property?" I kept my face neutral. "Actually, that's a perfect example. Let's talk about co-signing loans." After class, while packing up my materials, I noticed one student lingering. She twisted her hands nervously before approaching. "My sister keeps asking me to invest in her business ventures," she blurted out. "Mum says I'm being selfish for saying no." "Let me guess," I said gently. "Your sister's the family favourite?" Her eyes widened. "How did you know?" "Because some patterns are universal." I handed her my card. "Call me if you need help drafting boundaries." Outside, the autumn evening was cooling into winter. My phone showed 3 missed calls, all from unknown numbers. My family's latest tactic was using their friends' phones to try reaching me. I deleted the notifications and opened an email from Mrs. Rodriguez instead. "Thought you'd want to know. Your parents tried to rent an apartment in my other building. I declined their application. Some lessons need to stick." A text from Evelyn popped up. "Have you seen Tessa's latest post?" I checked Instagram reluctantly. Tessa's new profile photo showed her in business casual wear, her bio changed to social media marketing specialist. Her latest post read, "Sometimes rock bottom is where you find your foundation. Just personal growth, just at starting over." The comments were surprisingly supportive. "Love this realistic content. Props for getting a real job. Character development we love to see." My phone rang, Uriel's number this time. I answered. "Your mother's lawyer reached out again," he said without preamble. "They want to discuss a family reconciliation." Still no. "They're offering to repay the loan amount." "With what money?" Apparently Tessa's new job. The answer's still no. I watched a family walking past my car, parents holding their children's hands equally. Some debts can't be repaid with money. "You sure? They seem desperate to regain control," I corrected, "to rewrite the narrative, to make me the villain who can be redeemed through their forgiveness." Fair point. I drove home, thinking about patterns and cycles and how hard it is to break them. about how sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face their own consequences. At my apartment, a package waited by my door. Inside was a handwritten letter from Mrs. Rodriguez and an old photo. Teenage me mowing her lawn, looking tired but proud. Dear Olivia, remember this day? You told me you were saving for college while your sister was at modelling camp. I knew then you'd succeed, not because you were gifted, but because you understood value. Real value, not the kind your family chased. The property is doing well. The tenants send their thanks for the stable rent. Sometimes the best revenge is just living right. Carmen Rodriguez P.S. I heard about your financial literacy classes. Proud of you, girl. I pinned the photo to my bulletin board, right next to the flyer for next week's workshop. Financial boundaries, protecting yourself without guilt. My phone lit up with a final text for the day from that nervous student. I did it. I told my sister no. Mum's furious, but I feel free. That feeling, I typed back, that's your self-respect growing stronger. Keep feeding it. I made dinner in my quiet kitchen, enjoying the peace. No family drama demanding my attention. No sister's crisis to solve. No parents' expectations to meet. On my fridge, held by a magnet, was a quote I'd found during those dark days before the loan default. Sometimes the happy ending isn't getting what you wanted. It's realizing what you deserved all along. My phone buzzed one last time. A comment notification on Tessa's latest post. Someone had written, "Wonder whatever happened to your sister?" Tessa's reply, "She taught me the hardest lesson of my life. Hope someday she knows I learned it." I closed the app without responding. Some bridges don't need to be burned or rebuilt. They just need to stay broken, reminding us why we crossed them in the first place. Besides, I had lesson plans to write. Tomorrow's topic: how to recognize when love becomes a weapon. I had a feeling the class would be full.